things first, look who's here. Eric Mangini spending the holidays with us.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Aren't we the lucky ones?
For Coach Mangini being a big part of the show for 2.5 years, and for our friendship, even if people who watch the show don't believe we're friends, we truly are. At least that's what I tell myself.
That was very sweet, Nick.
That was very thoughtful.
That was really thoughtful.
Jenny, you want to follow up?
Nope, I think he pretty much does.
Made me feel like crap.
Bart and I thought we were non-work friends, and I mean, I invited him to my house for a party. He can't show up, and so now we're just, we're colleagues.
See, now I've never gotten invited to the house for a party.
Thankful for you too, Bart. Good to see you, brother. Jenna, I see you every day, but I'm so thankful.
Okay.
So thankful.
Coach, the 10-1 Niners have a tough task against the 9-2 Ravens. Sunday on Fox, Lamar Jackson is taking the NFL by storm this season, but San Francisco's defense holding opponents to a league-best 248 yards per game. Great defense against a great offense. Buckle up. Ravens safety Earl Thomas was asked if this game is just a preview of what's to come.
Super Bowl preview. You think the 49ers going to the Super Bowl? It could be. Let's see. We just go out there and try to play the best football we can possibly do. And when the Super Bowl comes, whoever we play, they're going to be in trouble.
Coach, you buying this as a potential Super Bowl preview?
Well, I think whenever you write a check with a little under a third of the season left, it's a little premature from that perspective, because you don't know where injuries are going to take you and the development of other teams, and there's a lot of things. So I don't love that aspect of it, but that is a very Baltimore thing to do. There's a lot of confidence in that group, and that's consistent with their personality. This could be a preview. It would be interesting because Baltimore would now be playing with the offense that they faced when they faced San Francisco last time in the Super Bowl. They'd have Greg Roman's offense, so that's an interesting twist to it. What I like about San Francisco in this matchup from a defensive perspective is not just the talent they have on the defensive line, but they do a pretty good job of mixing in pressures. And it's hard to match Baltimore's offense, and you hear a lot of coaches talk about trying to simulate his speed, trying to simulate how quickly things hit, the volume of scheme. So I like the idea of attacking with blitzes, showing them unscouted looks, making them try to adjust to you as opposed to trying to match up. And San Francisco will do quite a bit of that. So I like that aspect of it too.
I want to take this from the Baltimore angle because it is a Baltimore Ravens player who was asked is a Super Bowl matchup. He said at the end there, he's like, essentially, we know we'll be there. I'm curious to see who's going to be on the other side of it. And I really like Baltimore. And I think Baltimore is the team in the AFC with the least holes. I think New England has an enormous problem in the passing game. I think Kansas City obviously has a big problem in their defense, particularly their run defense. And Houston has a huge coaching issue. And to go along with some other holes on their defensive side of the ball, especially since Watt went down. And those are the only 4 teams I think are viable contenders out of the AFC. So I understand why Baltimore's been so good as of late. And they've beaten Seattle, and they've beaten New England, and they've looked all, I get all of it. I do think we should slow our roll with the Ravens a bit. In this regard, the Ravens, it was not a year ago, it was a month and a half ago that Kansas City got out to a big lead on them, and they didn't have a good answer. Cleveland the next week got out to a big lead on them, and they didn't have an answer. They then were in a dogfight that went to overtime with Pittsburgh, a Pittsburgh team that was just figuring out who it was. Like, we have seen Baltimore, I think they played a very close game against Arizona, if I'm remembering it correctly. Baltimore looks amazing right now. The 2 questions I have is, one is, are you peaking a month earlier than you'd like to, or are you going to be able to ride this wave the rest of the season, which is what they would need to do? And have they learned from what happened against Kansas City, what happened against Cleveland, and has Lamar, in a short period of time, developed enough to where if you are down 2 scores and you are forced out of your running game, and Lamar is developing before our eyes at a rapid pace, so he might have, that you are able to throw yourself back in the football game? I think those are legitimate questions. If I knew the answer to those questions, Bart, I'd be betting a lot of money on Baltimore to go to the Super Bowl because I think the other teams in the AFC are flawed teams.
Well, I think you should definitely be betting a lot of money, at least on them, to the AFC Championship game. When you talk about that Kansas City game, remember, that was before they acquired Jason Peters. That's before
Marcus Peters.
Yeah, Marcus Peters.
Yep.
That's before they really figured a lot of things out. And remember in that game, Harbaugh went for 4th down in the territory a couple of times early in the game because he had his analytical geek next to him telling him, go for it, go for it.
They've been
number
right on
say.
that this year.
But they've changed since then. They've evolved since then. And you talk about, okay, well, what happens if they get behind? Well, if they get behind, guess what? Their explosive part of their offense isn't just their passing game. It is their running game, because any explosive play in football is any play over 20 yards. They get that more than anybody through their runs on the ground. So I don't think anything's going to get them out of their running game. What's going to be interesting to see if San Francisco decides to play keep away from that explosive offense by moving the chains, because if it is any holes in Baltimore, the holes are the fact that they don't have a tremendous front seven. That's why they went out and got Pecco at like 35 years old, so they can have a space eater. What the strength of this team is their ability now to match up against Kansas City, be able to play man-to-man and still yet have to help over the top. So I want to see how they decide to match up against Kittles. Do they take Jimmy Smith and say, we have an abundance of corners, let's put Jimmy Smith, our biggest, tallest, physical, cornerback, and put him inside of the box? But when you have all these different defensive backs, it allows you to play complex coverages. You can bracket, you can play rat, you can play hole coverage from the other side with Earl Thomas never really knowing where it goes. The question is, can Jimmy G recognize it, and can he beat you with his arm? Because I believe that Lamar Jackson has proven, without having any turnovers in the last 4 games, without even punting when he's in the game in the last two games, that this offense, in a tough environment in Baltimore, West Coast team coach coming to East Coast, playing at 9 o'clock body clock time.
Yeah, that's hard to do. And going back to your point about playing from behind, that's my biggest reservation right now, and I've said this throughout, is if the whole stadium knows you got to throw the ball, can Lamar Jackson go back and do that on a consistent basis? If they can play the game on their terms, they're really hard to beat. And what you're going to see, or what I'd imagine you'd see over the next 5 weeks, is people trying a lot of different things to slow this offense down. And sometimes what happens is somebody hits on that, and then it's a copycat league, and you've got to prove that you have a counter to that. So it may be a lot of max pressure. It may be maybe a 4-4 look with 4 down linemen, 4 linebackers, and saying, okay, see if you can run the ball on us, okay, against this front, or can you beat us throwing the ball and show us that you can?
The other thing you've talked about, your concern with Baltimore, is almost the elephant in the room when a quarterback runs as much as Lamar's health. And when you play San Francisco, and this is an underrated part of Monday night, Baltimore lost their center, I believe, for the year. He's done for the season. Now you're playing what I believe to be the best defensive front in the entire NFL. And you talk about it all the time. Pressure up the middle is what disrupts guys the most. The worst thing that can happen is you get pressure up the middle, you turn to try to escape, and Joey Bosa's there waiting for you, Eric Armstead or DeForest Buckner. How concerned are you, forget even Lamar running the ball, but Lamar against this defensive front and what they're going to be able to do on Sunday?
Well, this defensive fronts like this, and San Francisco's front has a real edge against stationary guys. The problem is when they get against those mobile guys and they don't have lane discipline, because these pass rushers, they're teeing off, they're up the field, oftentimes they're behind the quarterback, but because they're so quick off the ball, they can get away with some of those voids that they create against stationary guys. When you've got a mobile guy, if you don't have absolute lane discipline, he can kill you. So to me, it's whether or not San Francisco can reel that in and actually keep him in the pocket, or are they going to create these huge lanes that he exploits?
We know in Baltimore, they always take your strength and make it a weakness, and they like to put people as the flavor of the day. Watch out for Richard Sherman happening to set the edge with those nub tight ends and him being the overhang player, and them putting that fullback number 42 up him on the next level, see if he want that smoke for a consistent basis. And watch Joey Bosa, see if he can play, the fact that he's going to get doubled, chipped, cut, just like they did Aaron Donald. They're going to make him a non-factor. Let's see how he responds, if he can stay consistent, because all they may need him to make is one special play, but he's going to have to earn it and deal with 85, 80 regular plays where it's not going to be so glorious.
All right, Niners and Ravens. Niners hoping to do what the Seahawks, the Patriots, the Texans, and the Rams all could not. Coach, stick around. Coming up, Jerry Jones has an ultimatum for Jason Garrett. Hear from the Cowboys owner next on First Things First.
You know who could, though, right?